Board Council, is there a quorum? Wonderful. Good morning. I am Ann Valentine, designee for Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch. I am calling to order the March 2024 meeting of the IHCDA Board of Directors. We are meeting pursuant to the board's policy for participation by members of the IHCDA Board of Directors in board meetings by simultaneous electronic communication. This means that only 3 members must be physically present at the site of the meeting, and the remaining members may call in. There will be an audio feed for the general public so that members of the public can listen to the meeting, and there will be a link to a video recording posted on IHCDA's website next month. At the time the motions are being made, each board member that makes a motion must state his or her first and last name for the record. The votes will then be tallied by roll call. I will now take a roll call of the board members to confirm members who are present and their location. Ann Valentine, designee for Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch, present in the room. Mark Pascarella, designee for State Public Finance Director Dan Hughey.
Present in the room.
Daniel Elliott, Treasurer of State. Board Member Michael Schopmeyer. Not here. Board Member Andy Place.
Andy Place present, remote.
Thank you. Board Member Chad Greiwe.
Present, remote.
Board Member Tom McGowan is not present. Okay, board members, you have received the meeting minutes from the February 22nd, 2024 board meeting. Does anyone have any changes or corrections? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Mark Pascarella, move to approve.
Andy Place second.
We have a motion and a second. I will now call the roll. Mark Pascarella.
Aye.
Daniel Elliott.
Aye.
Andy Place.
Aye.
Chad Greiwe.
Aye.
And Valentine, aye. Motion carries. Next up, please welcome Alan Rakowski, who will present the 2025 Qualified Allocation Plan. We get you for a few things up here today, Alan.
Good morning. I'm Alan Rakowski, Director of Real Estate Allocation, and here today to start off with the 2025 Qualified Allocation Plan. So as background, the Qualified Allocation Plan, or QAP for short, is a federally mandated planning requirement under the IRS that explains how every state and how we in Indiana will allocate its tax credits. We use the tax credit program to produce new affordable housing and also rehab affordable housing across the state. The QAP establishes threshold requirements, set-asides, evaluation factors, and compliance requirements to target credits in a manner that's consistent with the agency's priority and mission and strategic plan. Regarding the process, as we customarily do when we revise the QAP, we released 2 drafts of the QAP before we had a final version that we're presenting to you here today, and also held 2 public meetings. The first draft was released on January 22nd of this year, along with a 1-page policy brief. They were released to the public through our website, and I will go through the policy brief in a moment. And we had a public hearing on February 1st to discuss the first draft and the policy changes. On February 19th, we had a second draft that we released based on comments we heard in the first draft, and a public hearing was held on February 29th to discuss the second draft of the QA. Based on written comments, public comments, and continuing internal policy discussion, modifications were made to the final draft, which we're presenting to you here today. So as far as the changes, I would like to first walk through Exhibit A. Exhibit A is in your packet is the actual policy brief that we released when we released the first draft of the QAP. And we did this just to give an overview of what the biggest changes were in this QAP, what we were proposing as the biggest changes. And it's a pretty big change. So we felt that it was important to state in a policy brief what we were planning to do and what they would then see in this first draft of the QAP. So one of the most prominent new priorities in this one-year QAP is that creation of new and affordable housing in underserved and rural areas across the state. So in rural areas, small cities. We first emphasized this in our 2024 general set-aside, which we'll bring to you next month for approval. That set-aside was a 10% set-aside of credits targeted to just those counties that had never had or had 25 or less LIHTC units. So we identified 4 counties that are underserved and tried to target credits just to those 4 counties. So you'll learn more about that next month, the recommendation that we'll have for that. But that is what we're building on as far as this QAP goes. We're wanting to propose a wide geographic spread of investment of tax credits throughout the state via changes in this 2025 QAP. So one statistic I think is important is that we have current developments either placed in service or under construction in 187 of Indiana's 696 cities and towns. That leaves 500 plus communities that have not had access to this funding. So that's really what we're trying to do in this QAP, is to focus our efforts to create housing in those underserved communities. We're going to do this in a number of ways. The primary way to achieve this goal is related to our set-asides, so that we have credits set aside in different categories. We are proposing to remove the large city set-aside, and in favor of moving those credits over to small city, rural, and in supportive housing. Applications for large cities will still be eligible to apply. They would just have to do so in a different set-aside category. And also be eligible to apply in our 4% credit round, which I'll talk about a little later as well, along with state credits. We will propose to return the large cities set aside in the 26-27 QAP. So this is a one-year change that we're proposing. Again, really try to target new development in these underserved areas. We also revised the definition of small city. So we're including small city, but we're making it now 50,000 residents or less. Previously, it had been 69,999 and less. So we're trying to, again, try to narrow it to just those smaller communities across the state that would be eligible to compete in those set-asides. One of the other changes we made are, and I'll discuss a number of changes, but also in our housing needs index to try to, the scoring category, we really try to target housing in those areas we identify as the greatest need across the state. So we added some categories to give preference to cities and towns with a per household supply of affordable housing less than the state average for household incomes at 80% AMI. Also counties where the majority of the housing was built prior to 1940. So getting into those areas where there's the housing stock is older and in need of rehab or new housing stock. And then also counties with a lower than the state average vacancy rate. So areas where there's indicate that there's a tight housing market and few available units. Another consideration is we have a scoring category on considering previous 9% funding, 9% tax credit funding in a jurisdiction. We are revising that to give points to those areas that have never had an investment or have had fewer investments or have a low number of investments over the past 5, 10, or 15 years. So those are categories, again, designed to give preference to those areas that just have not had these 9% tax credits before. One thing to note also is the Indiana Housing Dashboard serves as a source for the demographic and economic data that we're using in quite a few places in the QAP. So we're referencing this in the QAP as this is a source that we hope then will be helpful in this, but also making it also a resource that our development partners can begin to utilize if they haven't already to see what the statistics are showing as far as need across the state. Within the QAP, there are also two scoring categories I'll point out. I'll go into a little further detail in a moment. One is related to emerging XBE developers, which I'll discuss in the next section here. And also a new scoring category to add the provision of on-site daycare for children or on adult day centers for seniors. So I'll move into Exhibit B to kind of highlight some of the biggest changes in this QAP. I do want to note that we are proposing a one-year QAP where we customarily would do a 2-year QAP. We're doing it 1 year. Part of that is because we're removing the large city set aside and really making a focus on those underserved communities. Realize it's a pretty big change and wanting to not exclude large cities in that set aside for more than one funding cycle. Our hope is to be able to have this 1 year focused on this to give us either data we need to make our QAP more competitive. You know, we'll see there are the barriers that small cities and rural communities have that we just don't know about because they never have applied. They see deals that just aren't going to be competitive. I think this will help us see what those deals are, and then maybe they come in and they score just as well as any others, and we'll use that as also to craft our next QAP. But then maybe we'll find some things that they really struggle at, and we didn't know that because we weren't seeing them before. So we'll use that also as, I think, a part of our focus in the next QAP. So Exhibit B, I'm not going to read through the entire exhibit, but this I did want to highlight some of the major changes we're proposing. The first one is in Section 3, private activity tax-exempt bond financing. So as you know, we offer tax-exempt bonds and 4% credits through the QAP. We also now have the affordable and workforce housing state tax credit, which is our state credit. We did our first round of awards last November. We're going to continue to offer the state credits with 4% credits and bonds through a competitive round that'll run at the same time as our 9% round. But the news also is that we'll also return to a non-competitive open round for deals that want to request 4% credits without state credits. We are able to do this because we did get additional bond volume from IFA at the end of last year. That allows us to then have two paths for bond deals to go. If they would like to request the state credits, they have to do so in a competitive round in July. Or if the deal can work without state credits, it can come in when they're ready through a non-competitive round, which is what we did for many years prior to having to close down the bond round in 2022. Section 4 set-asides, I talked about the removal of the large city set-aside. Also discussed the change in the small city definition. So those are the primary changes in the set-asides. On threshold requirements, a lot of these are clarifications and efforts to simplify requirements where appropriate or to make it so that things are more clear. So not necessarily changes in policies, but ways to make our QAP more clear based on feedback that we had gotten. On threshold, I do want to point out 5.3A. We did increase the maximum credit request from 1.2 million to 1.3 million. We had not increased this amount in quite some time. We felt it was appropriate now. We're hearing from our partners that with rising costs, they really need the ability to claim as many credits as possible. Also, 5.3B, we increased the amount of developer fee that developers can earn on their deals. We had previously had a per unit calculation, so your developer fee was based on how many units you produce. I think we've had it in effect for probably 10 to 15 years, quite some time that we had done that. Within, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we moved it over so that 4% deals would be based on 15% of eligible basis. So that's an alternative. And that's what most we see kind of we see as the common practice across the country. And we felt as if we've heard for many years that this is the direction we should go with the 9% credit as well. It matches what many other states do. It will oftentimes allow them to earn a little bit more fee, which we think is appropriate because we haven't had increases in fees in quite some time, and deals are harder to do as well due to the competition and rising costs. So that was certainly a change that we didn't propose in the first draft. We put out the first draft. We heard feedback. They continue to advocate for this change. So that's what we're proposing in the final draft. And then also on threshold, last thing I note is we did 5.4I. We are making internet infrastructure a threshold requirement. So a number of things that we will do is if we see either every deal is getting points, we may move it to threshold because it's something that every deal appears to be able to do. This was the case, but it's also one that we feel is really important that every new development across the state have at least that infrastructure for internet access. And there are point categories to then go beyond that to help provide that service, either covering the cost or allowing Wi-Fi service in different parts of the development. But at the very least, having that internet infrastructure. Moving to scoring. For scoring, in many cases, you'll see we modified existing categories, added some options on amenities and design features based on feedback we got from partners, or maybe remove some categories based on seeing that that everyone's doing them and it's moved to threshold, or just categories that had really run its course. So on scoring, I previewed this a little bit earlier. Really, the two that I wanted to point out or I guess three, but the first of the three new scoring categories is 6.5C, the emerging XBE category. So when we say XBE, we mean MBE, WBE, DBE, VOSB, SD, VOSB, and a lot of acronyms there, but it's collectively called XBE developers. So this category is designed for developers who have one of the certifications, who have never done a tax credit deal in any state or territory. So it's modeled again somewhat after our 2023 general set aside. We brought to the board in November where we identified 2 XBE developers to work with experienced consultants. This is what we want to continue in this version to have points for that. So someone who qualifies as an XBE firm, they must partner with a experienced either co-developer or consultant that has completed a tax credit deal in Indiana. And the idea being to have that mentorship and have that partnership to help them get their foot in the door and be successful in their first deal and be able to continue to develop in Indiana. Another new scoring category, 6.5E, as I alluded to earlier, resident services. Under this, the category is that's the main heading, but under there we have a number of different services that are offered. One we added was a provision for on-site daycare, before and after school care, or on-site adult day center. So this is a feature it's a bit of a stretch. We heard that from our partners that it's not easy to do, but we do recognize just the unmet need across the state for this type of service. So deals that can get this done, we feel should be rewarded. To do this, they'd have to have a MOU in place with the service, a licensed provider to operate the center. Also, these centers are not just for the client, for the residents or for the community. So that's going to be a community benefit as well. And again, designed to address the really strong need. And we know that this is a category maybe not many deals will qualify for, but we have seen some that have, and we feel like it's important to reward them and incentivize this type of service where it's feasible. And then the last new scoring category is one we added 6.5J, developments from previous institutes. So this refers to the Indiana Supportive Housing Institute deals that are offering supportive housing. Deals that went through institutes previously, 2023 or earlier, who graduated. We are adding points to help them get funded. So it continues to go with our commitment to any deal that goes through the Supportive Housing Institute eventually get funded, or we work with them to make sure that there's a path for them. And because it's competitive, not every year all the deals are able to get funded. So it's a way to kind of keep the pipeline moving and ensure that those deals from previous institutes still get done and can be competitive. The next area, miscellaneous, we provided updated application dates. So I'll just the application dates for the 9% credits, 4% credits with state credits. It's going to be the last Monday in July, which is what we've done for quite some time for that. And then again, as I mentioned, the bond round will be open as soon as the QAP is officially approved. So if you're doing a non-competitive bond deal, you'll be able to start coming in once the QAP is finalized. On schedules, one thing I'll point out is we do offer home funds as gap funding for tax credit deals. We're going to be a little more restrictive on who can apply for that. We're recommending that it just be for CHODO applicants or those deals that are in a housing first set aside. So CHODOs are community housing development organizations. They're private, not-for-profit, community-based organizations that have capacity to develop affordable housing in their communities. So they would need to have that certification to apply for home funds. Part of that also is because of the limited nature of home funding, as many HUD programs are oversubscribed and just funding is not the levels it used to be, but also this could be a way to incentivize not-for-profits to maybe look to become certified CHODOs, which would be a benefit to their community. So that's a kind of fairly high-level summary of a lot that we've worked on really since the last QAP was finalized 2 years ago. So at this point, I'll pause and see if there's any questions I can answer.
Any questions from the board? Just a comment that I think this is fantastic, and I appreciate that it's a one-year plan and then evaluate, sort of see if it's accomplishing what you intend to accomplish. And I like the alignment with some of the other priorities, particularly around childcare. That's of particular importance to the Lieutenant Governor. So thank you.
We agree.
that.
Thank you.
Make one additional comment coming from rural Indiana. I really, really like the idea of seeing what we can do to really help some of these rural communities, living there, but also traveling around there. There is a really, really big need. And I was very encouraged to see that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to hear that. We're excited to see how this goes.
Okay, seeing no more questions, we will hear your recommendation.
Staff respectfully requests that the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve the 2025 qualified allocation plan and the submission of the QAP and certification of public approval to Governor Eric Holcomb for execution as recommended by staff.
All right. We have a recommendation before us. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
What's your
Daniel
name?
Elliott.
Thank you.
Motions that we approve the recommendation.
We have a motion and
Andy
a
Place,
second.
second.
Excellent. I will take the roll. Mark Pascarella, Daniel Elliott,
Aye.
Andy Place,
Aye.
Chad Greiwe,
Aye.
and Valentine, aye. Motion carries. All right, Alan, you're up again to present the Home ARP Beacon Center.
Yes, so I will be presenting the first of two Home ARP. You'll normally have Peter Nelson doing these, but he's out this week, so happy to fill in for him on two projects that we're recommending today. His background, the American Rescue Plan, or ARP, provided $5 billion to assist individuals of households who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless or other vulnerable populations. It would provide housing, tenant-based rental assistance, supportive service, and non-congregate shelter It was really the end goal of reducing homelessness and increasing housing stability. IHCDA received $54.5 million in funding, home ARP funding, and in April of 2022, HUD approved IHCDA's home ARP allocation plan, in which we are setting aside $31.8 million for the development of affordable rental housing. Per the allocation plan for home ARP, all rental units created through the home ARP rental construction program will be supportive housing for home ARP qualifying populations with a focus on persons experience. So after we had the plan approved by HUD, we issued an RFP in 2022. We selected 10 teams to apply for this funding. On October 27th, IHCDA received Beacon Center, which was the third application that we received for home ARP funding. I'd also like to acknowledge members of the Beacon Center team are here today to support their project, of course. I'm sure to talk more about it if they have any questions. The total development cost for this project is $9.67 million. They're requesting $4 million in home ARP funding, $3 million National Housing Trust Fund, and $560,000 in development fund. Beacon Inc. is proposing a new construction of a mixed-use building. It's going to include 21-bedroom permanent supportive housing units, an overnight shelter, a day shelter, and by doing all this, creating a comprehensive hub of support for people experiencing homelessness. This project will be in Bloomington. The project is at a good site located near a bus line and located within 1 mile of grocery stores, doctor's offices, retail, restaurant options. The concept was developed by Beacon during the 2022 Indiana Supportive Housing Institute, and they're also requesting $50,000 in home ARP nonprofit operating assistance. So for key performance indicators for all of these projects, we are tracking a few things here. We're tracking the total number of rental units produced with home ARP, also the number of nonprofits receiving home ARP operating assistance, and then development benchmark tracking, including release of funds, start of and completion of construction, funds drawn, and also inspections and ultimately lease up. So the recommendation is the $4 million in home ARP in the form of a grant, $3 million in National Housing Trust Fund as a grant, $560,000 in development fund as a loan, and $50,000 in home ARP as a nonprofit operating assistance to Beacon. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, we will hear your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve awarding $4 million of home ARP funds in the form of a grant, $3 million in National Housing Trust Fund in the form of a grant, $560,000 of development fund in the form of a loan, and $50,000 in home ARP nonprofit operating assistance to Beacon Inc. for Beacon Center as recommended by staff.
Board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Andy Place, motion for approval.
We have a second.
Chad Riley, second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll call the roll. Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Daniel Elliott,
Aye.
Andy Place,
Aye.
Chad Greiwe,
Aye.
Ann Valentine, aye. Motion carries. Back to Alan
Yeah, so
for the home ARP Eagle Court Blue River services.
Yeah, so this is the second one today that we're presenting. So I'll skip the background and process. It's the same as the applied to the deal I just talked about. So on December 22nd, we received the 6th application for home ARP funds. It's called Eagle Court. The total development cost of $4.2 million, and they're requesting $2,500,000 in home ARP and $750,000 in development fund. Blue River Services, Inc. is proposing this new construction project in Corydon of 20 units. Project will consist of 1 and 2 bedroom units for individuals and families experiencing homelessness, with a specific focus on homeless veterans. Project amenities include a clubhouse, dedicated property space, on-site laundry facility, and support service space. Project site is located near a grocery store and retail options, so again, a good location with community services close by, including a food and clothing pantry, adult education, and work certification program. Blue River is also requesting $50,000 in home ARP nonprofit operating assistance. Same key performance indicators as the previous project, and the recommendation is the $2.5 million in home ARP as a grant, $750,000 in development fund as a loan, and $50,000 home ARP nonprofit operating assistance to Blue River Services. Be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from the board? Seeing none, we will hear your resolution.
Okay, staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolutions. Resolved that the board approve awarding $2,500,000 in home ARP funds in the form of a grant, $750,000 of development fund in the form of a loan, and $50,000 in home ARP nonprofit operating assistance to Blue River Services, Inc. for Eagle Court as recommended by staff.
We have a resolution before us. I will entertain a motion.
Andy Place, motion for approval.
Daniel Elliott seconds.
We have a motion and a second. I will now call the roll. Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Daniel Elliott,
Aye.
Andy Place,
Aye.
Chad Greiwe,
Aye.
Ann Valentine votes aye. The motion carries. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Next up, please welcome Nicole Chapman, who will present the project-based vouchers Eagle Court, Blue River Services. Good morning.
Morning. Happy to give Alan a break here. This is basically just adding the project-based voucher to what Alan just spoke about to Eagle Court. We are recommending that the approval of 20 project-based vouchers to Blue River Services for Eagle Court for a period of 20 years based on the annual fair market rents for Harrison County. I will stop there to ask if there are any questions.
Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, we will hear your resolution.
Staff respectfully request the board to approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve an award of 20 project-based vouchers to Blue River Services, Inc. for Eagle Court for a period of 20 years based on the annual fair market rents for Harrison County as recommended by staff.
We have a resolution before us. I will entertain a motion.
Andy Place, motion for approval.
Mark
Chad Greiwe.
Pascarella, second.
We have a motion and a second. I will now call the roll. Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Daniel Elliott,
Aye.
Andy Place,
Aye.
Chad Greiwe,
Aye.
Ann Valentine, aye. The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole. Next up, please welcome Samantha Spurgel, who will present the Homebuyer Award recommendations, Morgan County Habitat for Humanity.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Shorter than Nicole and Alan. Today I'm here to present the Home Investment Partnerships Program Homebuyer Program Award for Habitat for Humanity of Morgan County. Actually have some updates on our program. So we actually did release a new policy in October of last year, as well as a closing manual. This provides partners a guide on how to actually sell the unit and all the required HUD regulations and documentation we need to be to allow that partner to properly sell the home to an eligible household. We also hosted 6 training webinars last year, which were incredibly well attended. We had, I think, at least 6 new partners we've not worked with before attend that training series. And we do anticipate repeating that series this year, as well as establishing a homebuyer roundtable to bring those partners together so they can best discuss how this program is being utilized in their communities and hopefully help spur additional unit production across the state, which is incredibly exciting. The policy has remained the same in that applicants can request up to $500,000 per application. This is our first application for our program year 2023 round. I will let you all know that I think it's going to be a very busy spring. I have another one pending my review, and as of this morning, 3 more coming in next week, including 1 brand new partner. So I'm really excited to see the production on this program. Since we did relaunch this program in 2019, we have been able to support the construction of 54 units. Of those, we currently have 21 under construction or in the process of closing. So the program has grown tremendously. This board was gracious in awarding just shy of $1.5 million last year, and I do anticipate more this year. So for this particular award, Habitat of Morgan County has requested construction financing for 1 unit in Martinsville, Indiana. I will note, and it's been a few years since I've discussed how the program underwrites, but it is unique in that we do provide funding really in 3 different buckets. And so first is what we call the development subsidy. That is a grant when there is a difference between the total development cost and the appraised value. The second is a deferred loan to the home buyer that is forgivable after the period of affordability, anywhere between 5 and 15 years, pending on the amount of buyer subsidy given. That usually is in the form of down payment assistance and or closing cost assistance. And we did increase that amount allowed per household of up to $60,000, which can be really critical for some of these households. And then lastly, we have what's called interim construction financing, which is when we see there are gaps in financing that wouldn't necessarily be a straight grant, and those would be repayable upon proceeds. And so this award would be utilizing the buyer subsidy and interim construction financing as it is preliminarily underwritten, but I do re-underwrite every project prior to closing to one, ensure that the buyer is eligible, the buyer subsidy is appropriate, and to really understand the proceeds coming into the deal. So with that, I will pause because that was a lot of information and I've had 3 cups of coffee to see if anyone has any questions.
I don't really have any questions, but do want to just make a brief statement. Being from Morgan County in the Martinsville area, Habitat for Humanity Morgan County has been doing some really amazing work. I've seen it over the many years, and so very happy to see that work continue.
I'm very excited for them, and I do serve on the long-term housing task force with Morgan County, and there is a lot of fantastic discussion from a lot of different partners who are really passionate about this work, and I'm always happy to continue to support their efforts.
Great. Any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, we will hear your resolution.
Great, thank you so much. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve awarding home funding in the form of an award in an amount not to exceed $58,788 to Habitat for Humanity of Morgan County Incorporated as recommended by staff.
We have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Daniel Elliott, a motion that we approve this resolution.
Mark Pascarella, second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. I will now take the roll. Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Daniel Elliott,
Aye.
Andy Place,
Aye.
Chad Greiwe,
Aye.
Ann Valentine, aye. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please welcome Jerry Bain, who will present the Development Fund Loan Request Steadfast for Veterans.
Morning, Board.
Good morning.
This is the last of the standalone development fund applications that we received in December that we're going to be recommending for funding. This is a $750,000 loan to an organization called Steadfast for Veterans. And we do have 2 representatives of that group here with us today. This is to build 17 homes on the near west side of Indy on the site of a formerly blighted trailer park. So the homes are all 750 square feet. They're all self-contained. And they're in a kind of a U-shaped circle kind of thing. So we did underwrite this. It did go through our internal loan committee, and we are now asking you for approval.
Board, do we have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will hear your resolution.
Okay. Staff respectfully requests that the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve a loan from the Indiana Affordable Housing and Community Development Fund in an amount not to exceed $750,000 to Steadfast Indiana Homes for Vets Corporation for the construction of 17 homes as recommended by staff.
We have a resolution. I will entertain a motion.
Andy Place, motion for approval.
Do we have a second?
Chad Greiwe, second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll call the roll. Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Daniel Elliott,
Aye.
Andy Place,
Aye.
Chad Greiwe,
Aye.
Ann Valentine, aye. The motion carries. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Please welcome Richard Harcourt, who will present the Single Family Mortgage Revenue Bonds 2024 Series B.
Madam Chair and Board, good morning.
Good morning.
As you all recall, a significant portion of our business is we help first-time home buyers achieve home ownership by providing loans to those folks that have 6% down payment as part of down payment assistance as part of that loan. And the way we do that is we issue debt to buy and own those mortgages. So I've been in here in the last couple of years, almost on a quarterly basis, asking for approval to issue additional indebtedness for a program that has done well and continues to grow. And so I'm back again. This resolution looks a lot like what you have approved over the last 5 or 6 different quarters, but there are a couple of changes that I want to highlight real quick. In the past, you all have given us the authority to issue up to $250 million at a time. In each quarter, we generally have issued somewhere between 100 to 135 million. That issue this quarter is going to be close to $200 million. We have our volume has really picked up. And while you read in the news, right, that housing sales are down, it's not down in the affordable space. You know, in the first-time home buyer space, the market is still really hot, and we are continuing to grow in that business. So I think we're probably going to issue 200 versus 135 or 130 where we've been in the past. The second change is in our resolution, in our bond resolution, we have very, very little variable rate debt. I think it's 4 or 5% of the entire debt portfolio. But as part of our policy, right, we swap 75% of that variable rate to a fixed rate debt, and we have an optional call coming up on one of those swaps in July. We had originally anticipated that we might do something with that swap and this financing. That's not going to happen. But we did incorporate language in the resolution that does give us a little bit more flexibility in dealing with the swap and dealing with the termination date. We won't do anything with a swap unless we find substantial savings. And because it's variable rate, obviously, we wouldn't do anything with a swap without consulting our advisors and friends at the Indiana Finance Authority. So I think probably not going to do anything with a swap. That language is in here. I'd like to keep that language in here to give us some flexibility to deal with it. As you all know, right, we like doing fixed rate deals. We like doing loans that are below our allowed spread by the IRS. We like our mortgage loans to be at one rate. We like to be the bonds at the lesser rate, and we like to do a fixed rate deal and put them on the shelf and let our FA manage that. So those are the two changes. This one will be, as you've seen in the past, right, our issues have been a combination of both tax exempt and taxable indebtedness. Thankfully, the taxable market has stepped up and had a big appetite for buying housing bonds. This will probably be a mix of 45% tax exempt and 55% taxable. A notable shift in the past, we've done about 66%, 75% tax exempt. We're able to do 45% tax exempt and use that to use the same amount of volume cap as if we were doing a higher percentage of tax exempt in a smaller area. We're trying to manage volume cap to help support our growth. So this will have a smaller component of tax exempt indebtedness. We do anticipate it being full spread for us. It is non-recourse to IHCDA, right? The liability flows to the single family bond resolution, not to IHCDA's general balance sheet. I think I've talked enough. I'll stop there and take questions or comments.
Questions or comments? Mark?
I'll do some comments here because IHCDA, Rich specifically, does a great job reaching out to the IFA to talk to us, plan with us, get our thoughts. So I really do appreciate that because obviously there's nothing worse than sitting on the board and being surprised by something happening. No one likes that. So they do a wonderful job doing that. So I'll just make some comments about what he's talked about. Number one, the fact that they're doing $200 million and they continue to do very well, and they have been coming to us on a quarterly basis. The fact that the volume's up is great because that means we're actually getting the product out into the marketplace, which means people are buying homes. So I think that's kind of the housing kind of fits into the model and the mode of what they're trying to achieve. So I think that is terrific. I think the idea between the taxable and tax exempt actually is very important. I know when I talk about with my wife about bonds and stuff like that, she falls asleep, but the tax exempt versus taxable and preserving volume cap is a major deal. And so the fact that the financing team and just overall people are watching that and using that mix and utilizing the taxable market and the taxable market base, I think is exceptional because I think that preserves volume cap for either this portfolio or other portfolios within IHCDA, like when the developers want to use it, or it puts us in a situation where we can just expand. So either way, we win. And volume cap over at the IFA has started to become very scarce. And so therefore, we had some extra this year, so we're able to throw it over to IHCDA. but they're utilizing it the correct way and the efficient way, which makes it to where we're maximizing it. And the last point I will say, he did mention about variable rate debt being around 4 to 5%. Just let the board know that that's very low. Effective. So there's a lot of entities that are a lot higher than that. So I just want to put everyone rested. But it is a very percentage part of, again, very certain. And the last comment I'll make about the swap situations, I know they're expanding language. Talking about that because those markets move pretty quickly and ratios can change very quickly. So if something does come into the money by having this authority, then they can strike as opposed to wait at another board meeting. I appreciate them bringing it up. They will give us a call if they are going to. Those are my only comments. Sorry, I dragged on.
No, that's great. It's good to get the reassurance. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, I think you have a recommendation or resolution to make for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mark, for your comments and your guidance. Appreciate it. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approves the issuance of the 2024 Series B bonds and the related bond documents and the disclosure documents as substantially final in the form presented, and authorize any authorized officer to execute the same as recommended by staff.
We have a resolution. I'll entertain a motion.
Mark Pascarella, move to approve.
Andy
Andy
Place,
Allen,
second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll take the roll. Mark Pascarella,
Aye.
Daniel Elliott,
Aye.
Andy Place,
Aye.
Chad Greiwe,
Aye.
Ann Valentine, aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, please welcome Greg Glassley, who will present a low-income household water assistance program update. Making a dramatic entrance from the back of the room.
Not intentionally. Apologize. Yeah. You just want to switch it. Okay. Good morning, board. I'm Greg Glassley, the Director of Energy and Utility Programs. So I'm just going to give a quick update on the water assistance program. Next slide, Dylan. Just a couple of kind of high notes from each year. So IHCDA received at the end of May of 2021 2 awards for the water assistance program that total a little bit over $23 million with the direction to build the program and then administer it as you're building it. So a lot of challenges that came with that, certainly with different rules as well. So the original timeline was to obligate all of those funds by September 30th of 23 to liquidate all of those by December 31st of 2023. So that was the original timeline given by OCS. Some things did change, but we'll get into that in a little bit. The original team was a program manager, an analyst, and a monitor as well. We tried to, program design wise, it was determined that we would just pay arrearages on water and wastewater bills. So instead of paying your current charges, it was determined that way. Some of that was IHCDA decision. Some of that was based on OCS kind of guidance and direction to not create credit balances on bills. So it was kind of careful to do that. So that was the kind of program design of year one. We kind of modeled it after the energy assistance program as much as possible to make it simplified as much as we could for the applicants. They didn't have to do too much work. So in total, that first program year, we gave out benefit-wise about $1.8 million to a little under 9,300 households. The average benefit was about $195 that year. So next program year, 23, came big changes. So saw we had 23 million in total funds. We gave out 1.8 in benefits. So we decided to, in order to help more Hoosiers and give larger benefits out, we did pay arrearages plus current charges for program year 23. So that allowed us to help a great many more Hoosiers. So that was exciting. We created a water matrix in order to equitably give out benefits based on household size, income, those varieties on the current charges as well. Another big change, the manager and analyst left the program. So that created quite some disarray in that. So as we're still, the program was built, but it was constantly changing as well. So when they left, it left Leah Smith, who was our monitor. Next slide, Dylan. So I want to give her a really special, she is here today, but really thankful that not only she stuck around to help the program, but she really kind of took it as a personal kind of determination to get all the money out as much as we could. So she was really responsible for kind of guiding that program into the new year. As you can see, we ended up with a total of 285 vendors on board, and I think she was personally responsible for getting well over half of those on board. Getting them to sign MOAs was not as easy as we thought it would be. So giving out money, you know, to explain why that was a good thing to a lot of these vendors. So she did a tremendous job of doing that. And then Indiana was actually one of 3 states that were monitored by OCS. So in June of 23, I think 4 individuals from their group came and spent a couple days here. And so they were overall impressed with the program and how we were able to get funds out and how we were able to pivot from 22 to 23. And then they gave special kind of kudos to Leah for her method of monitoring the agencies and then the water matrix that she created. So she really did a fantastic job of getting the program to where it was and where it ended up. So as I said, the original timeline was to obligate by September 30th of 2023. In August, OCS allowed for no cost extensions. So IHCDA applied for that and were granted that in August. And so what that meant was the timelines for the original awards were all extended by another 6 months. So we have until Sunday to obligate, but those funds are obligated already. And then we have until June 30th of this year to liquidate. So what we decided to do, instead of continuing to keep the application open for 24, we gave every household that received a benefit in 2023, we gave them an additional benefit this year. So next slide, I'll show a little bit more, a little bit smaller, but that's just a graph of by program year, the number of households assisted, and then the dollar amount there is the benefit only. So that doesn't include any admin, anything for the agencies. That is strictly benefits to Hoosiers. The numbers on the column on the far right are still increasing as those monies are still being kind of transmitted and making their way to the vendors. But you can see a giant uptick between 22 and 23. Again, mainly due to, a couple of things, getting more vendors on board and then just being able to help out those that were current on their bills. We helped out a lot. So we've gotten well over 90% of those funds out the door. And like I said, that number on the right is still creeping up a little bit. So all in all, a pretty successful, we learned quite a bit about how to build and administer a program at the same time. And then really saw the need for water and wastewater assistance for Hoosiers. Really pleased to be able to help out so many.
I know without a graphic, it might be hard to describe, but the distribution across the state, are we hitting a lot of different areas with that?
Yeah, it's similar to EAP where, it's all 92 counties are hit. We really tried to focus on, so, getting the vendors on board, like I said, it wasn't as easy as we thought it would be. And so some of them took extra kind of convincing to get on board. But one of the things we did do was identify where the vendors were located and really try to hit on, if we saw kind of spaces where they were vacant spaces where we don't have as many vendors up in this area, try to hit them harder, but fairly even distribution.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, just one. You said obviously handing out free money seems like a no-brainer, but I have seen sometimes some of those programs can be burdened.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore it sounds like free money, but it's a hassle in essence. And so people just bypass it.
Yeah.
Is that what we saw with this program or?
Yeah, it was like, oh, it's a 2-year program. So how much do I want to invest in it if it's only going to be around for 2 years? So that was a big part of it. And then frankly, get an email or something, from somebody from the state and they were skeptical. So one of the things that we did, Leah and then Brian Phillips went to and we joined a couple of water groups and went to some of their conferences. And as people met, they put a face, much feedback about, oh, you're a real person. Great. Now I'm on board. So The combination of the short nature of the program and how much do we really want to deal with, the transmittal process and the bills and all that. But, there's over 700 water vendors in Indiana, so close to 300, we, just short of half, but certainly we got most of the large. So, but we tried to make sure we hit everybody.
So it sounds like you pressed on the gas and you got over 90% out. So I think that's good.
Yeah, and we couldn't just OCS, we couldn't pay private. Well, if somebody was on private well and septic, we could not help them out. So, every quarter when we would report back, it's issues there and said, boy, if we could help out those folks on, if they're income eligible, why can't they get help? But it was just rules that those folks out.
Great. Well, compliments to you and Leah for this great report, the good work. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, now it's your turn. Our Executive Director, Jacob Seib, will provide an executive update.
I do want to mention Greg and Leah again on the water program. It wasn't, obviously it was just a temporary program, but they have been recognized nationally for the application process and the eligibility of how the program was being implemented especially for the households that were applying for the benefit and the process that we created for them. In terms of making sure that they were eligible, but providing the supporting documentation to demonstrate that they were eligible. All that piece became recognized nationally for Indiana's effort in that. I do want to mention as well. So yeah, so just a great work on that.
So the program's not continuing. It's just
No.
they really are
Yeah.
going to shut it down.
It's sunsets. Yep.
Okay.
So I want to mention the single family mortgage. Obviously, Rich and the board approved the bonds, the single family bonds today. We were recognized by US Bank for our 2023 high performance of the production we were doing. And so again, US Bank came to IHCDA on March 13th. Their executives came and met with our team and wanted to thank us personally in person for the volume that we've been doing and the program that we've created. And so hats off to Rich and the entire team that we have on the single family side because it, again, it's being recognized. And I brought the little recognition plaque that they gave us a few weeks ago. So yeah, just again,
Congratulations.
yeah, I was really excited to have that. So thanks to US Bank for their support. So,
And real quick, with them being the servicer, I know we looked at that.
Yeah.
They have continued to service the loans. It sounds like they are all in because I know we were kind of worried about the scarcity of firms. So they're still performing, doing a great job. And it sounds like with our volume, they're really happy and continuing that service. So
yeah,
I think
we have a great partnership with them and it continues. Yeah.
that's awesome.
Each board member, except for those, Andy, yes, Chad, apologize, you're virtual, but you have a copy of the IHCA magazine. It is available virtually online as well. Just a couple of things I just want to mention about the magazine. Obviously, we recognize all this work isn't just done here at IHCDA. It's done through a network of organizations and partnerships and relationship building that we create. Greg was mentioning the partnerships that we had to have with the water utility vendors across our state. This is a lot of relationships that we work hard on every day. And the magazine takes the opportunity to recognize those partnerships that we have and the work that they do. On the cover, we have the Community Action Program of Evansville and their work specifically related to the individual development accounts, which is a savings account that provides match for those savings accounts. So it's a great article on that. Southern Indiana Development Corporation, which serves Davies County, Greene County, Knox, Lawrence, and I think Martin County as well. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. So we're really proud that we're able to highlight all the work that they do in all those counties in Southern Indiana. And then we have a home buyer from La Casa up in Goshen, Indiana, who was able to purchase their home using the home investment partnership funds that we just awarded here for Morgan County. So we have a real story there for one of the home buyers and the great work that she has the opportunity now to be a home buyer or homeowner. So just want to mention the magazine here for you as well. One of the things that we've had the opportunity to do this year, thanks to our state legislators, was to receive $5 million for a pilot program for youth transitioning out of foster care. We have received 10 applications for that, and those are currently under review. And we're excited that probably within the next 30 days, we'll be able to announce 3, maybe 4 teams that will take that initiative and be able to receive some financing to develop housing for youth that are transitioning out of foster care. So really excited about that pilot initiative that we have, and how we're also going to, IHCA is going to throw in some additional funding as well to match the state's funds. So more to come on that next month. So we're excited about that. I mentioned IDAs and state legislators. We had a agency bill this year. It was really just to clean up some language on the IDAs and the Neighborhood Assistance Program. That those 2 programs are state programs that haven't had any updates in terms of process, has evolved over the years. And then also with the IDA program, we do have some savers that are ahead of schedule as they save, and that allows us to match their savings accounts. So if they want to buy a home, and they can do it in a shorter amount of time than required under Indiana code, we didn't want to continue to delay them to buy a home or to start a business. So we made some, fortunately, we were able to get this Senate Bill 260 passed that really modernizes the IDA in that program for our agency and for our program participants. So I want to thank Senator Becker for her work in helping us with that bill. And then also want to thank our team, Mike McClellan, who's our government affairs liaison director, Emily Krauser, and Quinn Kissen. He was the subject matter expert on all of this and helped us get this bill through and passed and signed. So really thankful for our team, everyone who supported that. So yes, so just want to mention that real quick.
Great.
Lastly, I want to recognize one of our staff person who is retiring, David Stewart, right here. He, yes, he's retiring at 35. We're really proud of him for the work that he's done. So, but Dave has been a great asset to our agency, has contributed in so many different ways to the mission and supporting the priorities that we've set. So as you know, this board meeting runs very, very smoothly. Thanks to
Because
Dave.
of David.
And so next month, it might be a little challenging for all of us, but no, we'll be fine. But Dave is retiring, so I just want to congratulate Dave on that retirement and say thank you for your leadership and the passion that you brought every day for our mission. So thank you for that. So. Yeah.
Hey, Jake, this is Andy Place. I'd like to make a motion to reject that retirement request. Do I hear a second?
Yes. Exactly.
I'll tag in. I really appreciate all the hard work you did. You made life a lot easier. And IHCDA and the complexities that it is. So that meant a lot to me because it enabled me then to focus on. So that was very, very painful to me. So thank you for. You'll be missed.
Great. Thank you. Well, is there any more business to come before the
Yes, just
one more
two.
two
Can I
points
get
of
two more?
business? Yes,
Okay,
sure.
number one, in the back of the room, we have cake. So in celebration of Dave. So Dave, we have a nice cake for everyone to enjoy.
They were very quiet
They're
setting it
very
up back
quiet,
there.
so that's all set up back there. So yeah, he has served the state of Indiana for 22 years. And
Bravo.
8 of those have been with IHCDA. So thanks, Dave. So, and then last point is, like I always end, our next meeting is April 29th at 10 a.m. here in the Capitol room. We call this the Capitol, is what we call this room. So on the 8th floor. So this will be our April
I wrote it
25th.
down on my
So
pass.
10 a.m. Eastern time. So that's all my update for this month.
Excellent. Hearing no other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, you do have more business. Okay, yes, please. Great. Okay, awesome. And now, hearing no other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned as of 11:01 a.m. Thank you.